Well, one thing about Robert that I always respected was, back then especially, Robert was teaching 8, 9 hours a day. And the way Robert worked, he would do 1 hour with like each player. What I always respected too was he was always open to us working with other coaches. Um, I mean, partly because I think he, wasn't like I was with Robert 3 hours a day every day. So typically I take one or two, I think I went from one lesson a week up to two lessons a week, 2 hours a week. So now you're thinking you're playing tennis another 20, 25, hours or whatever. And so I remember when I was pretty young, he suggested I went to take a lesson with Pancho Segura, which was really cool. Like I might have been 10 or 11, and I went down to La Costa and I took a lesson with Segura, and Robert was interested to see like what he said and what he thought. And I had, with Pete it was interesting because he had that Pete Fisher, who was he didn't play tennis, but Pete was kind of supporting him, taking him around. So Pete would see footwork I mean, I was basically doing that too. I just, Robert was really good with the fundamentals, the strokes, but again, repetition, discipline, this type of stuff, I feel like with Robert's influence, it made my dad understand the importance of repetition, practice area. We had a ball machine at my house. I hit on that ball machine like you wouldn't believe, like this kind of stuff. But it was a little different back then. Nowadays you have a coach who works with a junior. They're with the junior 3 hours a day, and this. But back then it was more like Robert was like a specialist. He'd teach you the strokes, and I think that's also probably in some ways what maybe hurt Robert later on with some of these players that we learned tennis from. I mean, he taught Lindsay Davenport and Sampras and myself. I could go down the list. There were times when I was there was probably 10, 15 national champions all at the same club. But the ones that did well were the ones that had the outside help or had somebody that's going to feed extra balls or do extra time. And I had that with my dad. And then my dad would hire some hitters, and Van Wanitsky, he was another guy who helped me a lot. Jonathan Cantor, these guys were like either on tour where my dad would pay them to hit with me, or they were just off tour looking to make some money. And my dad, so besides Robert, I was learning a lot from those guys, especially as I got to be 15, 16, 17, and actually started to evolve my game and in my identity as a player. I learned a lot about strategy, about that stuff from those guys. So it was probably very similar to Pete. I just didn't have Pete serve.
Why not learn from the best to become the best?
I coach players like Tommy Ford, Radio Vega, Francis Tiafo.
Top 100 players like Glenn Weiner, Robert Kendrick, Prakash Armitage.
Number one in the world, Iga Świątek.
Pete Sampras, Lindsay Davenport, and Maria Sharapova.
To become better, you have to better yourself every day.
It's all about not being afraid to change something. A lot of guys are afraid to change.